Hello there, I'm Marika Bean. This video is a presentation on a grammar lesson on the present perfect and the simple past compared. I'll start with first a rationale about what I'm teaching, and then I'll get right into the lesson. So I chose the present perfect versus the simple past compared because it's a grammar concept that seems relatively easy to a lot of native English speakers, but the reality is that to English language learners, it's actually a very challenging concept. And so for me, this is something that's a useful thing to practically teach. Now, the present perfect actually does not have a comparable verb tense in many languages, and so this is a particularly complex lesson, and so I find that particularly useful. For this particular lesson, I chose a theme of travel and leisure. This theme, I do believe, will work well with the use of the simple past and the present perfect. And it's also one that I find to be interesting to students. Students like to talk about themselves and their experiences, and I do believe that this is key for students to develop their oral communication skills. Now, in the lesson itself, I chose to do an active warm-up to get students moving and engaged with the lesson, but also thinking about things that they have done in their lives. It's also interesting to have students look at what other students have done in their lives, and it's kind of inspiring that way. For my lesson, I chose to present the rules and then demonstrate how they're used, so kind of a deductive type of lesson. I felt that this was effective for my purposes. For the practice activity, I did choose a fill in the blank worksheet so that I can demonstrate how certain words how certain signal words indicate which verb tense to use. And there are two examples in particular that may be confusing to students, which I'll have to explain in greater detail to a class. The class I'm selecting this for is a CLB level 7-8 in an English for academic purposes setting. So like a college. This level of English is one I'm familiar with, having actually taught English language learners at a college level. The students would be international, so coming from all over the world, like China, Pakistan, India, South Korea, etc. The age range would likely be from age 18 up to the 40s or 50s or so on, and the understanding is that they would have had some form of education back home in their own countries. The length of this lesson anticipated it would be about 100 minutes, and previous knowledge that they would have to have at this point, or previous study, would be that they would have already reviewed the simple past earlier in the term. Learners have also been using the present perfect in a couple of previous lessons to this, so they understand the form, but not necessarily how it's used. And so this lesson will be particularly important for them. Okay, so we'll get right into the warm-up. Okay, so today we are talking a bit about our past experiences and interesting things that we have done. So we're going to do a little activity right now. I'm going to read a series of statements or ask questions, and you are going to stand up if you have ever done that thing. So let's do a quick practice. Stand up if you have ever taken an English class. Great, awesome. All of you should have stood up. All right, sit down. Have a seat again. Now, stand up if you have ever traveled to Europe. Okay, Chloe, when did you go to Europe? Okay, you went in 2013. Great, excellent. Okay, everyone can sit back down. Stand up if you have ever gone canoeing or kayaking. Okay, some of you don't know what kayaking is or canoeing is. So usually it's done in a 10, 12-foot boat. Usually there's two people in a boat and they are paddling. They have oars. They paddle on both sides. It's not a big boat, just relatively small. So if you've ever gone kayaking or canoeing, stand up. Okay, great. Awesome. Charlie, where did you go canoeing or kayaking? Okay, you went in Coquitlam. Okay, wow, good for you. That's excellent. Wonderful. All right, everyone sit down. Next question. Have you ever read a full novel in English? Oh, great. Most of you have read a full novel in English. That's great. Okay, Sam, which novel have you read? Okay, you've read Pride and Prejudice. Wow, that's a pretty hard book. Good for you. Excellent. All right, sit down, everyone. What about bungee jumping? Have you ever been bungee jumping? Bungee jumping. Does everyone know what bungee jumping is? It's like you're on a big elastic. You kind of jump off something and you bounce, right? Bungee jumping. Okay, only one of us has. Okay, and where did you go bungee jumping? Okay, great. Excellent. All right, well, it sounds like many of you have done interesting things. Now you might be asking yourself, okay, where is this all going? Why are we talking about these things? Today, we are comparing the simple past to the present perfect. Now, these are two different verb tenses that can be used in similar ways. They're very different. Now, many of you have said that you don't have the present perfect in your own language, and that does make the use of it actually very, very difficult, to be honest. But today we'll go over some ways we know how to use the present perfect versus the simple past. And so we'll get into that. Okay, yesterday we did talk about the present perfect. And so can anyone remind me of how to make the present perfect? Can anyone give me a sentence that uses the present perfect? Chapman. Okay, Chapman, what do you think? Okay, Mackenzie has read many books. Mackenzie has read many books. Okay, so looking at this, what is the present perfect? How do we make it? So we have a subject, Mackenzie. We have the has. Normally we'd use has or have, and then the participle, read. So that would be our first example. Great. Excellent work. Wonderful. Now, if we are going to make the actual form, how does this look? So this, the present perfect, looks like this. I'll write this on the board. So the actual structure of it, you take have or has, and then you add it to the past participle. So an example that we have here, I have played soccer my whole life. I have played it my whole life. This is the present perfect, and it uses have played, have played. Excellent. Now this is a regular verb. This is a regular verb. An irregular verb might look like this. So she has eaten Chinese food before. So eaten is obviously the participle of to eat. It's not eated, it's eaten. And so this would be an irregular verb, has eaten. Very good. Okay, so what about the simple past? Can anyone tell me how to make the simple past? Yeah, so for a regular verb, you take the infinitive form, you add ed to it. Very good. And so we'll write that up. Okay, so regular verb, infinitive form, and we add ed to it. So play, the verb play becomes played. Now with irregular verbs, to be honest, their forms all vary. So a verb like see becomes saw, right? If I wrote this on the board, see becomes saw. Last night I saw a cat, right? And so this would be the form of it. This is how it looks practically. Excellent. Very good. Well done, everyone. Now, when do we use the present perfect or the simple past? Can anyone tell me, when do we use the present perfect or the simple past? Does anyone know? Okay, well, on your handout that looks like this, you're going to read along with me, but we're going to go over when it's used. And so that's right down here. We'll start with when the present perfect is used. So the present perfect is used when an action begins in the past, and so I have a little timeline here, when the action begins in the past and it actually continues to the present. And so it starts in the past and it's ongoing. So it doesn't just stay here. It kind of, it's ongoing. It also can be if an action is recently completed. And so maybe it just ended, right? And so this kind of timeline still works for this. It started in the past and it only recently completed. Now it also can be if the result of an action in the past is still important. And so sometimes when people talk about, what you did today, right? They may use the present perfect. What have you done today, right? And often the present perfect is used in conjunction with words like yet, already, just, always, for, since, lately, words like this. And so there's a bunch of signal words that we would use for the present perfect. And I actually have some examples that I would write on the board. And so these are the examples and that I would write on the board. So all the signal words here are underlined. Have you already seen this film? Have you already seen this film? So the word already is underlined here. This is a signal word that indicates to us that we have to use the present perfect. In the second example, it says, we haven't seen it yet. So that word yet is another one of those signal words that indicates we have to use the present perfect. Let's look at the third example. I have always loved Macbeth, right? That word always indicates that we have to use the present perfect. And then the fourth example, up to now I haven't owned a car, right? Up to now is the signal phrase here that would indicate present perfect. And lastly, they have recently bought a house. So that word recently, it started at some point in the past. Maybe it was recently completed. It has implications for now. So have bought, right? And so some signal words there. Now for the simple past, to give a diagram of this, the simple past simply just happens in the past, right? So maybe it happened in 1990. We would use the simple past. Some words here that would indicate that we need to use simple past are things like, last night, yesterday, in 1918, right? And so the action has actually been completed in the past. If a past action is connected to a specific reference, that does indicate that it is the simple past. Okay. We're going to do a practice activity, and you all have this on your handout. And so there are 10 fill in the blanks here that look like this, and together we are going to decide which we would use. Would we use present perfect or would we use the simple past? And we'll work on this together. So number 1, can someone read this? Okay, great. What do we think it is? What do we think it is? So the first one, blank her leg when she went skydiving last year. Is it she broke or she has broken her leg? Okay, good answer. She broke her leg. So it happened once in the past, and so we would use the simple past for this one. Okay, question 2. Blank lived in both Canada and the United States. So Sam lived in both Canada and the United States. Which would we use? Now this is a tricky one. So for this one in particular, I have completed it as Sam has lived in both Canada and the United States. Now, this only works if Sam is still living in either Canada or the United States. If he no longer lives in either, we might actually be able to use the simple past. So we could say Sam lived in Canada and the United States. So that's kind of the difference with this one. So this one's a bit tricky. You can use either. Okay, number 3. Someone read that one for me. Great. So you see the new live version of The Lion King. How would we do this one? How would we do this one? Okay. Have you seen the new live version of The Lion King? Right? Now, why is it have you seen? So anytime happened in the past, and it could have been completed up until the present, right? And so at some point you saw it in the past, but there's no distinctive time in the past that it was completed. So have you seen the new live version of The Lion King? Great. All right, number 4. Last night I go to Ripley's Aquarium and the CN Tower. What would we do with this one? Because we have the signal words, last night, it does indicate we have to use the simple past. And so last night I went to Ripley's Aquarium and the CN Tower. Any questions so far? Any questions? Okay, we'll move along. Number 5. Chapman never eat octopus before. Okay, what do we think? We have that word before. What does before indicate? What does before indicate? Okay, good. It happened at some point, but there's no distinctive time frame. So Chapman has never eaten octopus before. Very good, very good. So we would have to use the present perfect for this one. He has never eaten octopus before. Number 6. We be here at the Eiffel Tower all day. Now, how would we conjugate this one? Are we using the simple past or are we using the present perfect? Okay, great. Excellent. Good job, Charlotte. We have been here at the Eiffel Tower all day. It indicates that they're still there and they have been there all day. So they haven't left it yet. They're still there, and so it started in the past and it's continuing to the present. So that's how we know we need to use the present perfect for this particular example. Excellent. All right, number 7. My grandfather blank from the Netherlands in 1949. Now, note here that there is a specific time frame. What does that mean? Which tense would we use? Great, yes, we would use the simple past because we have a specific time frame. My grandfather moved from the Netherlands in 1949. Excellent, good job. All right, number 8 is tricky. It's a bit tricky. Rita and Jose visit Panama City Beach yearly since 1982. Now, do we use the simple past or do we use the present perfect? For this example, I've used present perfect, have visited, because this indicates that they're still visiting there every year. Now, you could argue that you can use just visited. if maybe they no longer visit Panama City Beach each year. Maybe they're dead, right? We don't know. And so for this particular example, while I filled it out as the present perfect, in fact, it could just be the simple past, depending on whether they still visit Panama City Beach each year. And so, again, it started 1982, but it is moving to the present. So that timeline indicates it's the present. Okay, excellent. Number 9. Blank, you always go to the gym at 6 in the morning ever since you graduated college. What do you think? So this is habitual. So it started in the past, and it's still happening in the present. So that would indicate we use the present perfect. You have always gone to the gym at 6 in the morning ever since you graduated college. Great. And our final one. 10 years ago, my baby blank born when I was teaching overseas in Japan. And because this happened once in the past, and it's a specific time, we would say was born. Excellent work, everyone. Now we will move on to another activity where you guys will be paired up. For the conclusion of this lesson here, I would move to another exercise, break off into smaller groups where students would work together on something different. All right, that's been the conclusion of this grammar presentation. I hope it was useful to you. We'll see you soon.